Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today's video is going to be on Revelation chapter 9, so stick with me to hear what I have to say. So this chapter is still in chronological order from the chapter before. We're going to talk about the fifth and sixth seal. So verse 1 says, "Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit." As of now, this star that has fallen, I see this as an angel, and I see this as a good angel. And he has a key to the bottomless pit. What's the bottomless pit? As of now, I see the bottomless pit as a temporary prison for fallen angels. That is a note that Mike Bickle made, and it just seems to sit well in my spirit as of now. And so this bottomless pit is a temporary spot where fallen angels are. And this angel that we're just talking about, this good angel, has a key to the bottomless pit. Verse 2, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit." It's interesting because when I was studying this a couple weeks ago, in my area, there is a fire up north, far, like way up north, but the smoke from it was in my area, and it was really bad. Like, you couldn't even breathe. Like, it was super dense and super thick. And it was interesting because I was literally studying this scripture during that time, and what I experienced a couple weeks ago won't even compare to what will be experienced in this fifth trumpet. But it was just interesting because of the fire that's in the bottomless pit. There's going to be smoke that arises, and I believe it's going to be across the whole world. I think the whole world, to some degree, is going to sense this dense smoke. So verse 3 says, "Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power." So what is a locust? A real locust I see as a grasshopper, but in this case, these are not grasshoppers. These are demonic beings, and we know it because of the following scriptures and how they are worded. We can really confidently say that these are actually demonic beings. So then why even use the word locust? Well, I did some research, and a locust infests, it strips fields, and it comes in numberless swarms. And so I feel like John used the describing word of locust just because that's what's going to happen. These demonic beings are going to infest, and they're going to strip down like people, and they're going to be numberless. They're going to come in numberless swarms. That's just kind of how I see just the word locust being used in this context. Verse 4, "They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth or any green thing or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads." So why not harm the grass or the trees or anything green, as well as not harm those that have the seal of God on their foreheads? Well, the last one, the seal of God on their foreheads, obviously, like, that's God's people, and so these locusts can't harm them, so that's good. But what about the trees and the green parts of the world? I really see that because I feel like God is going to let the green continue just to give hope. I mean, think about it, like right now, like looking outside, like if all the green was gone, it'd be so bare, it'd be depressing. And I feel like God partially lets the green stay just to give us Christians hope. And then also for creation itself, for the animals and for the insects and for the birds. I feel like he's not going to harm the green because they need that too. All right, so verse 5, "And they were not given authority to kill them. So these demonic beings did not have authority to kill the people on the earth. Those would be the Antichrist army, but to torment them for 5 months. And so again, these demonic beings, they had authority to torment but not kill. And the torment is going to be on the Antichrist army. The end of verse 5. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. Mike Bickle says this: the anguish of a scorpion's sting will drive people to such despair that they will seek suicide. This refers to the 8th plague, yet without inflicting pain. And so he's referring to Exodus 10:12. So that 8th plague was the plagues that happened in Egypt with Pharaoh and whatnot. But what I want to hit home on is Mike Bickle feels that people are going to want to commit suicide. And they probably will even try, but they won't be able to actually succeed with that. And so that's just really just interesting to me. And it makes my tummy just twist and actually feel a little sick. In the book of Daniel, I believe it's the end of chapter 8, Daniel is seeing visions of the Antichrist and what he's going to be doing. And Daniel, too, felt sick. And he either said he was sick for days or for weeks. But when I read that text, that scripture, what did Daniel see for him to feel so sick? And here I feel sick, but I'm only feeling sick for a few moments, then I kind of get over it. But he stayed sick for a long time. What he saw just made his tummy go flip, upside down. And so it's just really interesting to me, and like how bad it's going to really get. Verse 7. The shape of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. So those locusts were just described. Now that was not a description of a grasshopper, right? And so that's why I'm very confident these are demonic beings. And so you can go back and pull apart the scripture and really take time with all these descriptions if you want. We won't do that right now. The end of verse 10. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. So this is the second time that John's bringing that up. So their power, the demonic beings, was to hurt men for 5 months. Verse 11. And they had a king over them, the Angel the Bottomless Pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek his name Apollyon. I think it's really interesting that John took the time to tell us both the Hebrew and Greek name of this king, this demonic king. I think we want to pay attention to that and remember these names, because John made the point to really let us know. Abaddon and Apollyon both have the same thought of destruction or torment. That's what David Guzik had to say. Verse 12. When woe is past, behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things. So remember we talked a little bit about a woe. A woe is grief, anguish, affliction, calamity, trouble. It's judgment from Jesus on the Antichrist. And I would definitely say what we just read was a woe. But then scripture says there's 2 more woes coming. And so I see the woes being the 6th and the 7th trumpet, and the things that are happening in the midst of the 6th and 7th trumpet. We'll talk about that later. All right, so verse 13. This would be the second woe. Then the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, released the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. All right, so you're like, what? What's this 4 horns and on the altar? What's going on? This is the altar of incense that we've been talking about before, and now the descriptions of it have even increased. There's 4 horns on the corners, which is actually a very normal thing for an altar of incense. And there was a voice coming from it. And it said to the 6th angel, release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So we see 4 angels and they're bound. This can give us confidence that these are evil angels. These are fallen angels. These are not good because they're bound. If angels are good, they're not bound. They have freedom, right? But these ones must be bad because they're bound. All right, verse 15. So the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. So these 4 angels, these I see them as bad, evil angels. They were prepared for the hour and the day and the month and the year to be released and kill 1/3 of mankind. This tells you that there's strategy in heaven, and it's organized. And I'm going to probably open a huge can of worms here, but this tells me that I really believe Jesus now knows the time of his coming. In Matthew 24, it talks about how Jesus, like, no one knows the hour or the day that Jesus is coming back. When Jesus said that in Matthew 24, I believe it was true, obviously. When Jesus says something, it's true. I believe in that moment he didn't know, but he was not yet ascended back to heaven to sit at the right hand of God. And so at that time, he didn't know. But after he ascended into heaven, then I believe he knew. And I believe then heaven also knows as well. And we can have a good idea of when he's coming back, based on not just this scripture, but many scriptures. So I know I just opened a can of worms, but this is something for you to think about, okay? All right, so now it says in verse 16, now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And so again, these 4 evil angels were released to kill mankind. They were released to kill 1/3 of the mankind. But all of a sudden now we see this army. And so it appears that these 4 evil angels, when they're released, it's as if they are in some way or fashion now ruling over this demonic army. And it was 200 million. It's just so interesting. That's how they're going to kill 1/3 of mankind, is by this army. This is what Mike Bickle says. God will commission them, the 4 evil angels, to kill 1/3 of the human race. They are demons prepared for a specific work of judgment in the end times. The 4 angels give leadership over part of the demonic army of 200 million. Possibly each commands 50 million demonic horsemen. So each of those 4 evil angels have like 50 million demonic horsemen that they're like overseeing. I know it's heavy. It's heavy. Verse 17. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, I might pronounce that wrong, and sulfur yellow. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these 3 plagues, 1/3 of mankind was killed, by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which came out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails are like serpents, having heads. With them they do harm. So it's a lot. Whenever I have scriptures like this, I pull it apart and I make these little bullet lists to help me understand better. And so the physical descriptions of these demonic beings, so they sat on horses and they had breastplates. So these demonic beings were on horses and they had breastplates. The breastplates were fiery red. that hyacinth blue and sulfur yellow. The heads of the horses were like lions. Out of the horse's mouth came fire, smoke, and brimstone. Power was in the horses' mouths. Power was in their tails, and their tails were like serpents that have heads. And by the 3 plagues, a third of mankind were killed. What are the 3 plagues? The fire, the smoke, the brimstone. And so you can go back and just kind of re-study that closely and look at that, but you'll see everything I just said because that is what the scripture said. And my computer completely just died. I'm assuming the scripture is coming to an end. I was on verse 17 or 18. I wish I had a Bible nearby. You're going to come with me because I'm not going to re-record this. I'm just not, because I have tried to re-record this so many times. It's not even funny. And so we're going to just go over here. You can see my little house for a second. Okay. Where would it be?